Welcome to the most over-detailed review of OnePlus Nord CE5 after using it as my main phone for 120 days. And please watch this fully because this video will clear any doubts you have about this phone. Inside the box there is a 1 meter long USB Type-A to Type-C cable, a SIM ejector tool which looks like it has a smiley face on it, an 80-watt Superbook charger which supplies those watts at 11 volts 7.3 amps. Then there is the phone and a smaller box which includes the quick guide and the phone case. Now let's look at the design of the phone. At the front of the phone you will notice that it comes with a pre-applied screen protector. And it also looks like any other phone in that price range. At the back of the phone there are two cameras which have an IR blaster in between them. Then a flashlight and an indented OnePlus logo. The camera placement and one of its colors seems to be inspired by the iPhone 16. The back, frame and all the buttons of this phone are made out of good quality plastic which feels premium in my hands. On the right side of the phone there is a volume rocker and a power button. On the left side of this phone there is nothing, but on the Nord 5 it has a button called plus key. On the top there is a microphone. On the bottom there is the speaker, USB Type-C port, another microphone and a SIM card tray. Now I will quickly go over some of the important specs of this phone. It has a 6.77-inch 120Hz 2392x1080 resolution AMOLED display with an under-display optical fingerprint scanner, a 16MP front camera, 50MP Sony LYT600 main camera, and an 8MP ultra-wide camera. The phone's processor is the MediaTek Dimensity 8350 Apex. It uses 8 or 12GB LPDDR5X modules for memory, and for storage it uses 128 or 256GB UFS 3.1 modules. These are all the available memory and storage configurations for this phone. It has an extremely large 7100 mAh lithium-ion polymer battery. For network, these are all the bands it supports, and it has Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5.4. The Type-C port is USB 2.0 and it has an hybrid SIM slot with expandable storage up to 1TB. For audio, it has a bottom-firing mono speaker and two microphones. The phone has IP65 rating, which means it is splash and dust resistant. The colors on the display look good as it is a 10-bit panel which supports sRGB, display P3 color gamuts and HDR10 plus content. Also, it won't cause any eye strain as it does have high frequency PWM dimming. The display gets bright enough to be usable in direct sunlight as shown in the video, and it gets much brighter when watching HDR content. According to the OnePlus website, the display is Netflix and Amazon Prime Video HD and HDR certified. It has Aqua Touch technology, which basically means the phone screen works normally even when it is wet. The phone has an optical fingerprint scanner which unlocks the phone under 700 milliseconds if the fingers are dry, and you can have a maximum of 5 fingerprints. In the display settings, you can set the refresh rate to auto, standard or high. You can also set an app-specific refresh rate if you wanted to. There are 4 screen color modes called Vivid, Natural, Cinematic and Brilliant. I personally like the Cinematic mode as it makes the image have more colors while not making it saturated. There are 2 AI features called Image Sharpener and Video Color Boost, but I like to keep them off as I want to view the content as the creator intended. Most people are concerned about the sound quality of this phone as it has mono speakers. In my opinion, the speaker sounds a bit muffled and it doesn't have a lot of clarity. The phone has a mode called as the ultra volume mode, in which the phone speaker gets loud as other phones, but the sound quality hits rock bottom. I cannot listen to anything in this mode for more than a few minutes because my ears will start getting irritated due to all the popping, screeching and crackling sounds the speaker was making. Now I will play some music so you can hear how the speaker sounds in medium, high and ultra volume mode.
Over the edge, feel like I'm floating through the air. Over the edge, feel like I'm floating through the air. Over the edge, feel like I'm floating through the air. It's hard to breathe, but that's alright. Hush. It's hard to breathe, but that's alright. Hush. It's hard to breathe, but that's alright. Hush.
Unfortunately, the microphone didn't pick up the sound quality drop between high and ultra volume mode that well, but it should still give you an idea of how muffled the speaker sounds. For majority of normal people, the speaker sounds okay in normal mode, but they will surely notice that it sounds bad in ultra volume mode. The microphones on the OnePlus Nord CE5 are really good. The audio sounds pretty clear and there is no peaking and scratching sounds. Now I will play an audio recording from this phone. This is how the audio recording sounds in OnePlus Nord CE5. The call quality of this phone is equal to all the phones that I have used, but this phone has a feature called clear voice, and according to its description, it says that it filters out background noise. But in my testing it doesn't seem to do much. Now I will play some call recordings with and without clear noise and with and without background noise. This is the call quality of OnePlus Nord CE5. This is the call quality of OnePlus Nord CE5. This is how the call sounds with background noise on OnePlus Nord CE5. This is how the call sounds with background noise on OnePlus Nord CE5. The phone by default seems to reduce background noise really well, so it feels like the clear noise feature did nothing. The background noise was my ceiling fan and PC fans running at full speed. This phone has an actual proximity sensor which is located on the right side of the earpiece speaker. This phone comes with the OnePlus Talk Dialer, which has inbuilt call recording without the alert, and these are all the call recording settings. It also has a feature called AI Call Assistant, which allows you to summarize or translate calls. The summarize feature currently supports these languages. The feature works by recording the call, then creating a transcript, and finally summarize it with AI. When I tested the feature, it works well if it doesn't mess up the transcript, and if it does, like here it wrote down language as along ways, call as cars, and English as increase, which also messed up the summarization too, as you can see here. The translation feature works well enough in my opinion, and these are all the languages it supports. This feature has two modes, one where it just translates and shows it as a transcript like this. This is me testing the call translation feature. This is me testing the call translation feature. Or it will translate and read the translated sentence out loud like this.
नमस्कार, इस कॉल की अनुवादित बोली जोर से पढ़ी जाएगी।
My name is Incubator&Tech guy.
मेरा नाम इनक्यूबेटर और टेक गाय है।
And this is me testing the call translation feature.
और यहाँ मैं कार्ड अनुवाद सुविधा का परीक्षण कर रहा हूँ।
To test the internet speed, I used Ookla and fast.com. Indoors, the download speed stayed around 130 Mbps, while the upload speed stayed around 4 to 5 Mbps. Outdoors, the download speed stayed around 240 Mbps, while the upload speed stayed around 40 Mbps. Now I will go over the performance of this phone. I have the 8GB plus 256GB variant. First, we will go through all the artificial benchmarks. In AnTuTu benchmark, the phone scored 1.34 million, and these are all the individual scores. It only got warm during the benchmark and dropped 5% battery. In Geekbench 6 CPU benchmark, it scored 1323 for single core and 4056 for multi-core. The phone was warm and only dropped a percentage of charge. For the GPU benchmark, it scored 8669, and again the phone was warm and only dropped a percentage of charge. For 3D mark, I would only read the important stuff and show everything else on the screen. In the wildlife stress test, for the first loop, it scored 10,046 and the stability was 47.6%. The phone's charge dropped by 11% and the temperature peaked at 45 degrees. And there is a steep drop in the 18th loop. In the wildlife extreme stress test, it scored 3030 with a stability of 54.4%. It also had a steep drop at loop 18 and 19. The charge dropped by 10% and the temperature peaked at 45 degrees. In the solar-based stress test, it scored 4925 in the first loop with a stability of 54.3%. The score dropped at loop 14 and 15, went back up, then dropped again at loop 18 and 19. The charge dropped by 10% and the temperature peaked at 45 degrees. I ran these benchmarks multiple times, but those steep drops kept on happening. Finally, I ran the steel nomad light stress test, in which it scored 1234 with a stability of 87.4%. The charge dropped by 9% and the temperature peaked at 44 degrees. These are our synthetic benchmarks which only approximate the real world performance. So to check the real world performance, I played a bunch of popular games for 4 weeks straight. In CoDM, you can set the graphics to medium and the frame rate to ultra, which is 120 fps for MP and 90 fps for BR. Or you can set it to very high and max, which is 60 fps in both BR and MP. In MP with medium and ultra settings, the max frame rate varies from 120 fps to 116. There were no frame drops or stuttering. The phone got barely warm even after playing for 9 hours straight, and the charge went from 100 to 19%. Also, when screen recording for like an hour, the max frame rate will drop to 72 to 70 fps as the phone will get extremely hot and there will be slight stuttering too. In BR with the same settings, the frame rate will vary around 90 to 86 FPS, the phone gets barely warm and there is no stuttering, and the screen recording performance is similar to MP. In MP with very high and max settings, the frame rate varies from 60 to 56 FPS. There are stutters when there is too much going on the screen and it barely got warm. And if you are screen recording for like 30 to 40 minutes, the phone will get extremely hot and frame rate will drop to 40 FPS and there will be random stutters. Then in BR with the same settings, the max frame rate will vary around 60 to 57 FPS and the thermal, stuttering and screen recording situation is same as MP. In BGMI, you can set the graphics to Smooth and Extreme Plus, which is 90 FPS, or Ultra HDR and Ultra, which is 40 FPS. But when I first tested the game, it only went up to HDR and Ultra. After the latest update, it now goes to Ultra HDR and Ultra. The problem was that I already completed the video and was going to upload it. So I had to redo this entire part, which took me another week, which was extremely annoying. With Smooth and Extreme Plus, the frame rate was constantly at 90 FPS and would only drop to 85 in TDM and 82 in BR if a lot of stuff were happening on the screen. There were no huge frame drops or stuttering, and the gameplay felt extremely smooth and the phone was barely warm. And when screen recording, the phone will get extremely hot and the max frame rate will drop to 70 FPS after 16 minutes and 57 FPS after 20 minutes. With Ultra HDR and Ultra, the game would get up to 40 FPS max, but it's still around 37 in TDM and 35 in BR. And there were huge frame drops and stuttering. The gameplay was not smooth at all. So it wasn't fun to play and the phone got kinda hot. And everything becomes even worse when screen recording. The highest graphical setting in which the game felt good and playable is HDR and Extreme. In Genshin Impact with maxed out settings, you will get 60 FPS for the first few minutes. Then it will drop down to 39 to 37 FPS range and the phone gets very hot. In G-Cubed with maxed out settings, the frame rate varies from 60 to 54 FPS and the game stutters when entering and leaving cutscenes. And sometimes when there are a lot of enemies on the screen. Also the phone gets very warm. Then in Wuthering Waves with maxed out settings, you will get 60 FPS for the first minute. Then the frame rate will go down to 41 to 37 FPS and you will get random stutters like this, which you can stop by capping the FPS at 40 and the phone does get very warm. If you have made it till here, please like the video and share it with people who are thinking about buying this phone. And importantly, don't subscribe. Yes, you heard that correctly. Because this will be the first and probably the last phone review on this channel, as I realized halfway through making this video that I don't really like making phone reviews. So I will stick to the stuff I like, which are videos about PCs like this one here. I will only reconsider if this video becomes the most popular video about this phone. Also hype this video so it ends up on way more people's For You page. And if you like PCs, please check out these videos. Now let's get back to the video. When I first heard about hyper-resolution, I thought it would work like DLSS, but after researching about it, I learned that it doesn't work like that. According to some articles and YouTubers, it basically uses the AI chip inside the phone to increase the sharpness and details inside the game. When I used it, I did notice that it made the game look a lot sharper and slightly increased the contrast, which made enemies easier to spot in arena mode, also in BR mode if they are standing in front of a building. If they are standing in front of foliage, it makes them much harder to spot due to it introducing a lot of aliasing artifacts on medium to far away objects and also causing simmering on fast moving objects, which causes the game to look slightly worse. In my opinion, I think hyper resolution is basically a sharpness filter placed over the game, because I took some screenshot with and without hyper resolution. Then I made the normal screenshot look identical to the hyper resolution one, which was very easy. All I had to do was increase the sharpness to 34, which is what I think the hyper resolution is probably doing. Adaptive frame booster is basically like frame gen. It boosts your frames by 1.5 to 2 times by creating fake frames using AI. The AI generated frames add latency and mess up your aim, which is bad for competitive games like BGMI. It happens because the AI generated frames only take data from the real frame and do not consider any inputs given after the real frame, and those inputs will only show up on the next real frame. For example, if you are moving your aim to the left, then before the AI frame you start moving your aim to the right, the AI doesn't take this into consideration. So in the AI frame your aim is still moving to the left, which confuses your brain as it expects your aim to move to the right, causing your brain to overcompensate. So in the next real frame your aim would have moved way too much to the right, which will mess up your accuracy. It also causes games to feel sluggish and weirdly awful because it looks smooth but doesn't feel that way. In games like Genshin Impact, it is more usable as the downsides have less of an effect, but I still really did not like it. This phone has great battery life because of its huge battery. It lasted nearly 2 days when in normal use, like watching YouTube videos, browsing Reddit and Brave, etc. Also, when I slept, the phone was left on idle for 12 hours. This was all done with the phone on high performance mode. When in heavy use like gaming, it will last from 6 to 10 hours depending on the game. Like in BGMI plus CoDM, it lasted a total of 10 hours. In CoDM only, it lasted 9 hours. In Genshin Impact plus Wuthering Waves plus G-Cube, it lasted a total of 6 hours, which is really good. This phone charges very quickly for the size of battery it has. In 15 minutes, this phone reaches a charge of 37% and it becomes very warm. In 30 minutes, the phone reaches a charge of 62% and it is now barely warm. The phone takes 1 hour and 6 minutes to fully charge. Here is a time versus charge percentage chart, and the charger got barely warm. Now for the cameras. First thing I notice is that the phone takes slightly too long to process the images. The camera preview and the processed image look extremely different. The camera likes to overexpose the image and blow out the highlights. It also makes the image very contrasty and slightly boosts the color. You can fix the highlights problem by setting the exposure to -0.3 or -0.7. The main camera on this phone is mediocre, but the ultrawide is kind of bad, as the ultrawide images are not really detailed and always blurry for some reason. The portrait mode has a problem with edge detection, even for simple objects like a bottle of coconut oil, an orange, etc. In high blur setting like f1.4, some parts of the object get blurred. It becomes less noticeable if you set the blur to f4. And if you introduce more complex subjects like human beings, it becomes really bad. And I won't be showing any pictures of human beings because I take my privacy very seriously. But I will describe how the pictures look if it is needed. It has high res mode which is usable and it does get more details out of objects than normal mode. The night mode on this phone is really good. It is able to capture moderately noise free but still sharp images with good color rendering, and it doesn't overexpose the image at all. This only applies for the main camera, and ultra wide it is bad, and the selfie camera it is okay. This phone takes really good selfies for some reason. It properly exposes the images, barely increases the contrast, and slightly boosts the color. It also keeps the skin tone and texture looking natural. And the portrait mode in the selfie camera has the same problems as the main camera. Now for the video recording, this phone goes up to 4K 60fps for the main camera, and there is no noticeable image quality drop when going from 4K 30 to 4K 60fps, which is very important as the image quality is already pretty mediocre. The thing that makes the videos that come out of this phone look bad is that it keeps on changing the tint and the white balance way too much even when I barely move the camera. Here also it slightly boosts the color, increases the contrast, overexposes the image, and does another thing which is increase the sharpness, which makes the noise much more noticeable. The ultra wide goes up to 1080p 30fps and the selfie camera goes up to 1080p 60fps. The videos from the ultra wide are usable. It has the same problems as the main camera and has way more noise, and this weird blur that happens whenever I move the camera. I think that the blur is probably from the noise reduction algorithm. And when recording in the same resolution, the image quality of the selfie camera is equal to that of the main camera. The phone has slow-mo which is 720p at 960fps and 1080p at 480fps. And there is dual recording which allows to record with the selfie and the main camera at the same time. It also has portrait video, but it has the same problems as portrait photos. The Pro mode is bad as there is no RAW photo support, no Pro video mode, and you cannot control the tint in the Pro mode. If you want a good camera phone in this price range, you should probably get the Moto H60 Fusion, because the OnePlus Nord CE5 is mainly designed for performance and doesn't give a lot of importance to its cameras. This phone has really good software. It comes with Oxygen OS 15 based on Android 15 straight out of the box, with it receiving 4th generation of software updates and 6 years of security updates. As it is Oxygen OS, the animations are really smooth and satisfying. Even after using this phone for 120 days, I really did not notice any issues with the software at all. It has inbuilt app lock, private safe, and clone apps. It does unfortunately come with bloatware, but thankfully you can just uninstall them and disable the ones which you cannot uninstall. This phone has the best software experience out of all the phones that I have ever used. If you ask me to rate it, I would rate it 11 out of 10. And if you have any questions about this phone, please leave it in the comment section and I will try my best to give a clear answer. And thanks for staying till the end. Bye.